Everyone who hates when I win. The winged victory came to the Louvre in pieces, and people still line up to see her. And I can only hope that despite my flaws, and despite my cracks and my breaks, and there are many of them, that at every premiere and everything I do, people will wait in line to see.
Things just went from bad to worse for Snow White, and it's shaping up to become one of the biggest bombs of all time.
Rachel Zegler has officially turned into Hollywood's biggest joke after Disney decided to pull the plug on her. Snow White and yank it out of cinemas months after its release and still failing to make a profit. And it doesn't stop there. Rumor has it that Rachel is now on Hollywood's no-hire list, with insiders whispering that her career is basically over. So today, we're diving deep into this unfolding drama to uncover why Disney seems hell-bent on taking revenge for the massive losses she cost them. Listen up, folks, because Disney's Snow White remake is officially drawing the curtain. And it's definitely not the fairy tale ending anyone hoped for. Rachel Zegler's Snow White, the long-troubled live-action reimagining of the classic 1937 animated masterpiece, has quietly exited theaters after months of backlash, controversy, and a box office disaster that can only be called catastrophic. Despite Disney's attempts to breathe new life into the beloved story, the film itself turned into a cautionary tale, messy mix of political drama, PR failures, and a fan base that simply refused to buy what Disney was selling. Let's get real. Snow White was doomed right from the jump. Between Zegler's constant digs at the original film calling it weird and not empowering, and her tone-deaf social media posts that rubbed fans the wrong way, this remake carried way more baggage than buzz. Add to that the casting controversy, stirred up by Peter Dinklage, who slammed the studio for blatant hypocrisy over how they portrayed the Seven Dwarfs, and Disney's bizarre choice to replace real actors with CGI characters. What you get is a full-on PR nightmare wrapped in mouse ears. When it finally hit theaters on March 21st, audiences basically shrugged. The opening weekend pulled in just $42.2 million, domestically a catastrophic flop, especially given the jaw-dropping $269 million production budget, not even counting marketing costs. That's right, before Disney even dropped a single trailer, poster, or social media ad, this movie was already an absolute budget monster. Now, even after months on the big screen, Snow White never managed to recover from its disastrous start. The box office kept sinking week after week. The reviews were lukewarm at best, and the buzz Disney hoped would turn it into a modern classic simply never showed up. What they ended up with was one of the studio's most infamous financial flops in recent memory. Now, as the film quietly vanishes from theaters, Rachel Zegler's career seems to be disappearing right alongside it. The numbers behind this catastrophic movie are just as brutal as the backlash it faced. After just 2.5 months in theaters, Snow White.
The Walt Disney Company's live-action controversy-bedeviled Snow White opened in theaters with a sleepy $43 million in ticket sales, according to studio estimates on Sunday. With a budget above $250 million, Snow White had set out with higher ambitions, particularly since it returns Disney to its very origins. The 1937 original Snow White and Seven Dwarfs was the company's first animated feature and paid for its Burbank studio lot. So $43 million on a budget of $250 million. And keep in mind, as you always have to keep in mind with these kinds of numbers, that the production budget is not anywhere close to the full budget of the film. There's also a marketing budget, which is often the same as the production budget, if not more, which means that the total amount that Disney probably spent on this Snow White adaptation was probably closer to $500 million.
Quietly closed its theatrical run with a whimper, not a bang. On its very last day, June 5th, the movie managed to scrape together a mere $347 from 25 North American theaters. Yep, that's less than what some folks spend on a single grocery trip. The total domestic box office haul, a disappointing $87.2 million. Add to that the $118.3 million it pulled overseas, and the worldwide total comes to roughly $205.5 million. Sounds like a decent payday, right? Well, not when you remember the production alone cost a staggering $269.4 million, and that's before considering the massive marketing, promotion, and global distribution expenses Disney sunk into this project. Let's break down the math real quick. Since theaters typically keep about 50% of ticket sales, Disney's actual share of that $205.5 million is closer to $102 to $110 million depending on the region, and that's before factoring in the millions poured into ads, red carpet events, and Rachel Zegler's now infamous press tour. When you stack up all those costs, Snow White didn't just flop, it tanked spectacularly, with losses likely soaring well past $150 million. The crash was swift too, After a disastrous opening weekend, the film's box office take plummeted by 66% in its second week, quickly losing the throne to Jason Statham's modest $40 million action flick, A Working Man. From there, it was a rapid descent into box office oblivion. So, what killed Snow White? A toxic cocktail of bad buzz, internet backlash, PR blunders, and a story that just didn't click with audiences. Instead of a fresh fairy tale, Disney ended up with a cautionary tale story that'll be dissected for years as the studio rethinks its reboot strategy. Now, the post-mortem on Disney's Snow White only adds to the sting. The numbers are actually worse than initially feared. Back in March, Deadline estimated the film would limp to $225 million globally and rack up $295 million in total revenue, factoring in $11 million from global theatrical rentals, $62 million from home entertainment, $130 million from streaming and TV rights, and $2 million from merchandise. Those projections were already grim, forecasting a $115 million loss after subtracting total estimated costs of $410 million that included the $269.4 million production budget, $111 million in global marketing, and $29 million in residuals and other expenses. But with the actual worldwide box office now at only $205.5 million, nearly $20 million, short of projections, the red ink runs even deeper. Disney's losses likely top $125 to $130 million, especially as the weak box office haul means downstream revenue from home video and TV. Licensing will also be lower than expected. Meanwhile, the contrast couldn't be more stark with Lilo and Stitch, Disney's other live-action release this year. With a $100 million budget and over $637 million earned globally in just a few weeks, it's not only profitable, it's potentially Disney's biggest hit of 2025. It's also set to dominate the summer box office. As Snow White quietly slips over to Disney+. The company is clearly hoping for some redemption, maybe some goodwill from streaming viewers who skipped theaters, but expectations are low. Critics already trashed the film, audiences stayed away. And the controversy around Rachel Zegler and Disney's reimagining choices had many turned off long before the film even hit screens. Bottom line, estimated losses now exceed $130 million. Snow White will be remembered as one of Disney's biggest live-action flops. Meanwhile, Lilo and Stitch may single-handedly save the studio's summer. If there's one lesson here, it's this: audiences aren't interested in fixing beloved classics. They want authenticity, respect for the original, and storytelling that connects. Lilo and Stitch delivered that. Snow White didn't. Now, as for Rachel Zegler, well, she's still her own worst enemy. Her latest comments ahead of the 2025 Tony Awards suggest the Snow White PR disaster hasn't fully blown over. And critics are definitely noticing. After being snubbed for a Best Actress nomination for her Broadway debut in the Romeo and Juliet revival, Zegler posted a tone-laced message on social media that, some are calling Rachel Zegler's recent remarks passive-aggressive and bitter. While she did start by praising her Broadway peer, saying performing on stage isn't for the faint of heart and comparing actors to athletes, the subtext felt like a low-key jab at being left off the nominees list. Many online felt her line, "I love my job so darn much," came across as more defensive than celebratory, especially compared to the gracious responses from nominees like Sadie Sink and Sarah Snook. But what's really making headlines isn't just the snubbit, Rachel's seeming inability to let her work speak for itself. After the Snow White disaster, where her criticism of the original film and its themes alienated many longtime Disney fans, she's continued to project a public image that feels tone-deaf, especially in industries like Broadway that are deeply rooted in legacy and tradition. Critics have pointed out a pattern. Over the past few years, Rachel slammed the 1937 Snow White film as outdated and weird, sparking backlash for disrespecting a classic. Her red carpet comments haven't helped either, often coming across as flippant or self-centered, even when she tries to be sincere. Now, instead of congratulating fellow nominees and showing grace, she's again focused on her own perceived snub. This means Rachel Zegler is undeniably talented, but her PR instincts remain her biggest weakness. In industries where image and timing matter as much as talent, even well-meaning comments can backfire, especially after controversy. If she wants to flip the script, the best move might be silence. Let her performances do the talking, show professionalism, and avoid responding to every perceived slight. Meanwhile, Broadway continues to celebrate its stars, while Zegler remains just outside the spotlight she craves. Adding more drama to the story, rumors say Rachel and Jack Black had a backstage clash after Minecraft's massive success stole the spotlight from the Snow White flop. Sources claim Jack threw a shady comment about Rachel not handling criticism, referencing her infamous 2023 interview where she clapped back at Snow White critics. Word is Rachel got visibly upset, maybe even teared up, and definitely wasn't laughing it off. This allegedly happened at a promo event or press junket, making things awkward. This adds to Rachel's growing reputation for struggling with criticism. Remember her Broadway drama? She missed a Tony nomination for Romeo and Juliet and immediately took to social media, talking about how tough the job is and how much she loves it, but the tone felt more like a subtle jab at the snub than genuine gratitude. Now, with the Jack Black incident, the vibe is the same, defensive, tense, and tired of the hate, but not in a way that wins hearts. Her film barely stayed afloat, while Jack's movie is dominating theaters and could be one of the year's biggest hits. Fans are naturally picking sides, and Rachel isn't getting the sympathy she might have hoped for. At the end of the day, this drama just highlights what we've seen before. Hollywood is brutal, and not everyone is built for the pressure. Jack Black knows how to play the game. Rachel Zegler is still figuring it out. If this beef is real, it might just be the latest in a series of missteps defining her career. So, what do you think about this mess? Drop your thoughts below, and don't forget to check out our other videos for all the latest TI intel. Next time, bye.